The finals are set in Rhode Island, and it's the 2-seeded Game Breakers and the 8th-seeded Road Dawgs ready to face off on Monday night to end the summer 2024 season in Rhode Island. I have Matt standing by. Let's break down how we got there and how the 8th-seeded Road Dawgs have kind of been able to build and make it to this finals, and how the Game Breakers took care of the Skyhawks in overtime to advance, and it was the Road Dawgs defeating the Washed Up Boys in a very good semifinal night of action on Monday. We'll get to Matt in a second. Let's start with that Game Breakers and Skyhawks game. As I talked about, went into overtime. It is the Game Breakers 70-62. Let me give you some of the stats, and I'll let Matt break it down for you. But a very close game. Gian Avedijan, 24 points and 8 rebounds. Charles Alexander, 23 and 15. One of his more impactful games, I think, and Matt can kind of touch on that in a second. But, Charles has been there, a good chunk of the games. He looked like the player we saw a year ago, doing a lot of the things, kind of controlling the glass, controlling the paint, attacking the basket. And Jose Mercado, 14 points, 5 rebounds. We'll get to kind of the three-point shooting in a second for the Game Breakers, because I think that was what really never came. Right, and so throughout the game, the Skyhawks played great. They had a lead throughout much of the game. Noah James, 36 points. He started off extremely hot. I would say at least 10 points in that first quarter. Don't have the exact number, but he didn't miss early and kind of gave the Skyhawks a lot of momentum and helped them build the lead. Omar Rahman, 16 points, 5 rebounds. But then it was the Game Breakers able to hang around, make just enough threes. Gian Avedijan and Jose Mercado, both 3 of 12 from 3. So I guess I'll be Kyler today, pointing out the three-point shooting. But that was the thing that never really came. We talk about the Game Breakers, Matt, hanging around, and that's even maybe not the right word, but staying in the game, doing what they do. And then really in that third quarter, so many times we see kind of the barrage of threes come where they make 3 of 5. They make 4 of 6 as a team, and you blink and they're up 10. And that never really happened. And we got to overtime because Gian Avedijan hit a big one to kind of give them a lead late in that fourth quarter. They get to overtime, and then they make enough plays. But like I talked about, 8 of 29, Matt, from 3. What was it? Was it that simple? Did I nail it? Like what didn't happen for the Game Breakers, even though they were able to overcome it and still get the win?
Yeah, I think you did hit it right on the spot, but their defense all game, especially from Charles Alexander in the paint and Jose Mercado, the way they were able to play defense and perimeter defense was definitely a big step up. Also, I think Gian might have been 1 or 12 going into that last 2 minutes, and then he hit those 2 big baskets, one to give them the lead and one up to tie up the game. And I think it was their first lead of the entire game, too, so it was a big shot, and I remember him shouting out, "I make the big shots. I make the big shots." So it was they definitely proved themselves in this game, and I had the Skyhawks going into it, and Game Breakers came in and did what they needed to do.
Yeah, and we're going to preview the finals, so we'll talk more about the Game Breakers, but I do want to get to the Skyhawks. They played a great game, and they were very much in this game. This is almost like, if you're the Skyhawks, and I know that they were disappointed after for many reasons, feeling like they weren't getting the calls, probably disappointed in themselves, not getting the best of shots when they had the opportunities, and kind of falling into positions where they were relying on a call more than kind of controlling it themselves. But this was the game, if you're the Skyhawks, everything kind of went as they could have asked for just about, right? I think Omar Rahman, 6 of 17 from the floor is not the part you would draw up, but Noah James hit big shot after big shot. Their defense, and maybe it was just the Game Breakers missing some, but they got some threes to miss for the Game Breakers when they needed them to kind of be able to stay in and very even in the game. Game went to overtime. I mean, all of those things, if we're talking about it, hey, Skyhawks, you're going to be in a 1-point game with a minute to go in the semifinals, you would take that, right? It doesn't matter who your opponent is. So they played a really good game, and rebounding, we're right in it, 33-30. Only both teams had 9 turnovers. That was pretty even. They only shot 4 of 20 from 3, so and all of them by Noah James. So I think that was kind of the missing part for them, was anyone else, when Noah would drive an attack, when Omar would finally kind of break free for a second and attack, whoever they kicked it to wasn't able to get one to go. So Elijah Morton usually hits. He was 0 for 4. Omar Rahman 0 for 4 to kind of pull the defense out to give him more space. So quickly, Matt, on the Skyhawks, I mean, again, it kind of went according to plan, but there was things that they've done throughout the whole year that they really just, things tightened up in the semis.
Yeah, I think it was just like you said, the lack of the bench scoring is what really cost them, because it feels like every week Noah James puts up 30-something points at least, but it's usually they have that bench scoring with a high field goal percentage. And like you said, Elijah Moore and Omar, they shot 1 for 8 and 6 for 17, which wasn't totally their fault. They just weren't getting great looks because the defense was very, very good from the game breakers, especially from Charles Alexander, like I said before. And Jose Mercado, the way they were able to play defense on Omar, who's usually the Skyhawks' second scoring option, they were able to shut him down for the most part inside and just not give him any clean looks.
Despite all of that, the Skyhawks did play a good game. The game breakers still found a way to battle. Both teams, played very good, and it was a super competitive game. For the score to be 70-62 even after an overtime, that low scoring, I want to say favors the Skyhawks because the game breakers do kind of want to get it in the hundreds. They're going to make a ton of threes and kind of blow up the score. It was very even. Both teams' offense at times looked good, and then both teams were able to kind of lock the other down a little bit, and it was a lot of adjusting. It was a really good game. So shout out to the Skyhawks in their first season, come up just short in the semis. It is the game breakers with some Legacy Leagues vets advancing to the finals to take on the Road Dawgs, who were able to also escape a close one against the Washed Up Boys. Let's get to that one. 66-64. It is the Road Dawgs, and let's just kind of skip right ahead. I'll give some stats after I get to Matt. But at the end of the game, it was a huge stop, whether it was a steal or a rebound by Shaq Ardrey. He got fouled and split the free throws when they were up 1, so that was kind of stop number 1 for the Road Dawgs, and it was a very close game. The Road Dawgs had a 8 or 10 point lead in the second and third quarter. They kind of were able to keep it around that. The Washed Up Boys made their run in that third quarter and erased that, and we had a very close game into the fourth. Like I talked about, fast forwarding, it was multiple stops by the Road Dawgs when they needed it, and I think that was kind of the key, and I'll get into some of the matchups in a second. But Shaq Ardrey, can't remember if it was a steal or a foul, but he ends up with the ball when the Road Dawgs needed a stop, and he gets fouled with about 2 seconds left. He goes down and splits the free throws, so the Road Dawgs are up by 2. Washed Up Boys take a timeout, and then they defend the inbounds, which from the sideline, it is at half court, but it is still such a tricky, I don't know why. It's the same thing in a real game when you're inbounding on the sideline like that. Del Butler gets a tip with 2 seconds left, and the Washed Up Boys don't even get a shot up in that final possession for the Washed Up Boys, down 2. And that allows the Road Dawgs to advance. So throughout the rest of the game, Matt, what stuff caught your eye between these two teams?
Yeah, I was really impressed with the Road Dawgs, just their all-around teamwork in this game, the way they all just focused up at the end, and the Washed Up Boys too, going into the third quarter, or might have been in the third quarter. I remember they called a timeout when they faced a big run, and they came right out all focused up, hit a couple threes, and tied up the game or took a lead. But I just thought the Road Dawgs, especially Rayon Watts, their defense in this game was huge, especially at the end of the game. It was the winning play defensively that got them the win. But I was very impressed with the way they played defense and their perimeter defense and just the way they were able to get steals all night, it felt.
Yeah, these two teams played a close one in the regular season where it went to overtime, and in that one it was the Washed Up Boys making plays, if you remember, and kind of getting out in the fast break, a Hendel, a roll, and one in the regular season matchup in overtime to kind of give them the edge. And this one was all Road Dawgs, and so Rayon Watts 21 points and a huge defensive night with 3 steals for him. Kareem Cooper 12 points, really balanced. Shaq Ardrey with 12, Del Butler with 11, and for the Washed Up Boys, Hendel, a roll. 5 of 8 from 3, 25 points. I mean, he was there. Leroy Brown, 15 and 8. Jeremy Altume, 15 points and 9 rebounds, and he was doing some of his stuff in the mid-range and down low, was a big part for this team. Kevin Gonzalez, 8 points. So not to name everyone on all the teams, but when you were kind of watching this game, it was Rion on Hendel a lot, and that almost seemed to, Hendel still played great, but that made Hendel work. So for the Road Dawgs, like, all right, that, check, like Hendel, is at least having to work for his points. Del Butler on Leroy Brown a lot is like, all right, kind of check that they were kind of even and were able to make each other work on both ends. And it really came down to some of those extra guys. So we haven't talked about Kareem Cooper, who wasn't as impactful as he's been in past games, but was able to kind of focus more on the offense and getting out to run with Rion when they were able to get a stop. And that's really, it was an even game. Rebounds were even, 26-25. Both teams took under 23s each as a team, and shot right around 50%. Same with the field goal percentage. So it's funny how it kind of all balanced out, but defensively they both matched up so well. Matt, anything else on the washed up boys? I mean, their first season as well. It's so funny how this whole playoffs, we talked about that 7 and 10 seed and the 8 and 9 matchup, how both of the teams that won there were returning teams. I don't know what that means. Like I said back then, that may just be a coincidence, but it's funny how in the semifinals, it is two, teams who have been here a little before are the ones to advance. So, washed up boys, anything else I missed on this one, or you want to get to the finals?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game for the washed up boys. Definitely one of the better games I've watched this season, if not a top 3 one. But just they've been a fun team to watch all year. They definitely bring that fun energy to the game, and they have great chemistry together. They keep everyone involved, and it's going to be sad not seeing them anymore, but definitely great game from them, I thought. Road Dogs just were able to come out on top.
For sure, and this one as well, so 66-64. So again, a lower scoring game, speaks to the defense, speaks to how both of these teams were able to kind of get stops and turn that into offense. But it was, very, very good game, and both teams had to work, that's for sure, in this one. All right, let's get to the finals, and before we do, I have some Legacy Leagues history, Matt, for you, about this Road Dogs team. The 8 seed, Road Dogs, make it to the finals. We had a 9-seeded Dawgs boys do this, a very similar path when we had 14 teams back in the summer of 2019. So they beat the 8 seed, same thing, kind of like the March Madness seeding. They beat the 8 seed because they were the 9 seed. They went on to play the 1-seeded Boom Shakalaka and defeated them, the same way the Road Dogs kind of took down Lob City here. And then they went on in the semis, and they beat the 5 seed, so, again, similar 5-4 seed to what the Road Dogs have done, and they played the 3rd-seeded Good U in the finals, this Dawgs boys team, and they were able to win it as a 9 seed. So very similar. It was a deeper league, a lot more teams where it's like 1 or 2 games, you're a 9 seed versus, a 5 seed, right? So same thing with the Road Dogs. How many games this season were they right there, right? Halfway crooks. The washed up boys game we talked about, we did that, either or thing earlier in a couple shows ago. They easily could have been a 4 or a 5 seed themselves. And because some things didn't bounce their way and some plays they failed to make, they were a 8 seed but had the talent, just weren't able to put it together. Well, they put it together. And they're here in the finals against the Game Breakers, who haven't lost since week 2 or 3 or 4. I guess I can actually get it right. Week 3, when they lost by 4 to Lob City way back in June. So these two teams match up for the second time. But I like to kind of shout out the Dawgs boys. They'll love that. It's one of those teams that had some, it was like their second season. They had some newer players in their first season, but had the talent just like this, and were able to kind of make a run and shocked the world, as they said back in the summer of 2019. And they are the lone team not named Lob City to win a Legacy Leagues title in Rhode Island. So we'll have a new champ this year, but it took a team like that to do it back in 2019. And so now let's kind of get to the Road Dogs and Game Breakers. Matt, you'll make a pick. I'll give you some analysis, and we'll end it in a little while here, which is great. Not too much to talk about, because then we'll have All-Star Week next week as well, and we'll do one more show. But when these teams matched up in Week 6, it was the Game Breakers 101-85 winning. It was a 10-point edge in the fourth quarter for the Game Breakers, so it was a close game throughout. The Road Dogs won the first quarter. The Game Breakers had a 4, 5, 6-point lead at halftime and a pretty even third quarter. So a competitive game at that point. This was kind of when the Road Dogs really started to turn it around a little bit. They had just defeated the Air Mambas in Week 5. They would then, drop 2 in a row to the Game Breakers, like I talked about, and then to the Skyhawks, and would defeat the Muffin Tops, the Road Dogs would, and then would, we've talked about it, make the run in the playoffs. Gian Abadesian with 38 in that one, Jose Mercado and Hachi Amini with 23 each. And they went 15 of 32 from 3. So I'll get back to that in a second. about the three-point shooting of the Game Breakers and how big that is, as we've talked about all year. For the Road Dogs, Kareem Cooper had 33 and 12. We expect to see another huge game from him. Karan Bostic with 15 in that Week 6 matchup. Anthony Lyons, 14 and 9. Shaq Ardrey with 13 and 7. But it was, the Road Dogs out-rebounded the Game Breakers in that one, 40-31. They had 13-4, so they were down in the turnover battle in that one, which I'm sure impacted a lot of the flow of that game. So a couple things to watch: rebounding, turnovers, three-point shooting. So Matt, kind of give some analysis and make your pick who you got in this finals between the Road Dogs and Game Breakers.
I'm going to have to go with the Game Breakers as much as I want to take the Road Dogs in this one. I still think they definitely have a very good chance to win it just because of the depth that they have. And it feels like any one of those players could go off on any kind of night. They all shoot the ball fairly well, and they all kind of stick to their roles. They know their games. Like, they have Del Butler, their big paint player. As it seems, he makes a lot of good plays in the paint, but he can also shoot the three ball well. Kareem Cooper is a very good slashing scorer that they have. And then Shaq Ardrey's just kind of that sniper that they have from three-point range. And then Rayon Watts, who's a very, very good defender for this team and can pretty much go off on any given night if it's his night. So they definitely have a good chance. But I just think the way and the talent that the Game Breakers have on the top four players from Jose Mercado, Giannavidze, and Hachi, and Charles Alexander, they are all very, very good players in this league, and it's like any one of them could drop 30 points in any given night. So I just think at the end of the day, with the defense that they can play and their height at the rim, I got to go with the Game Breakers here.
And there was no Rion in that Week 6 matchup. So kind of adding him back into this equation, right, is another kind of thing
be a big impact there.
That the Road Dogs have.
Defensive end.
Yeah, and so I'm going to come back to you kind of for your X factor in this one. You can go either team, but just kind of those matchups, right? So Rion, he can guard a ton of different players, whether it's starting on Gian, eventually maybe getting Hachi, but Kareem Cooper's going to have to, pick up one of those. It's going to be everyone guard. There's, like you said, 4 options on the Game Breakers, right? So there's no more like Kareem Cooper's able to roam more like he was in the semis. Still was guarding a player, but was not one of the main offensive players for the Washed Up Boys, was my point. He will be guarding someone who can be a main offensive player in this one. So Rion Watts, Kareem Cooper, Shaq Ardrey, Del Butler, we can name the whole team, but how do they match up? And my key before I get back to you is going to be the three-point shooting. So we just saw, and I believe it was 8 for 29, right, from the Game Breakers in the semifinals. That may have been their one game where they don't shoot it well this season. That might have been it, and they still won. And so that's what worries me if I'm the Road Dogs. And again, as the Road Dogs, I'd love to give them some motivation here. I'll go Game Breakers just from Legacy League's history. And this is the one time I will make a pick, and I have a very good reason why. Usually, between the semifinals and finals, 2 of the 3 games are close. I don't know why. There's always one that's like a blowout, whether it's Lob City in the semis, just destroys a team, and then the other game is close, and the finals are close. We got 2 close semifinals this year. For whatever reason, I'm telling you, the finals, it could be either way. It could be the Road Dogs blowing them out. It just usually leads to the third game not being as close as the 2 semifinals when it goes this way. I could be wrong. There's no rhyme or reason to this. It's just a pattern I've seen. The three-point shooting struggle for the Game Breakers in the semifinals leads me to believe and feeds into that point that they might shoot close to 50% in this finals as a team from 3. And if they do that, that's how they're able to build that lead. And a blowout could be an 18-point win, right? It might be a 10-point game, and kind of a close game throughout, 7 points, 12 points, 8 points, and kind of fluctuating right there. And the Game Breakers just make a ton of threes in the fourth and get it to 17, 18. I don't mean a 40-point game by any means, but I don't think it's going to be a 1-point game. Now, it could be the Road Dogs. Rion Watts is able to do some things. They make a ton of threes, and they're able to kind of get that 10, 12-point lead to balloon at the end and be a blowout. But so that's what I mean by blowout, kind of 15 to 20-point finish. However we get there, I'm just nervous because what you want if you're playing the Game Breakers is them to take a lot of threes, and 3 of 12 from Gian and Jose is like the recipe. right? Cool. That's step one. They have to miss some open ones that they usually make. Check, right? They played great defense. They rebounded. This is not a shot at them. Everyone has an off night. That might have been their off night. That's scary because they were able to win in overtime, not shooting the best. Gian made 2 huge ones down the stretch, like you said, and they won that game. So I'm not digging at either team. The law of averages usually comes around, and we've seen the game breakers all year make closer to 50% than 29% like they did in the semis. Okay? So I'm going game breakers. I hope it feeds the road dogs. I hope we get a double overtime game. That would be awesome. I would rather that. The way the averages and from seeing all of these games, I don't know why, I have a feeling one way or another this one won't be as close as the 2 we just saw. So I'd like to get on the record for that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong one of these times. Matt, your defense, your matchup to watch in this one as we get out of here.
Yeah, I think the matchup has to be at the guard position with Rayon Watson. If I think who he should be guarding Giannavizian, if that's a matchup that happens, that's definitely going to be the one to watch this game just because I think it's going to be a very competitive battle the way they both play with their playing styles. And I think it's going to be a great game.
And if that's the case, who's able to kind of stay with Hachi, and then it kind of leaves the 2 bigger guys, right? So you would assume Del Butler on one of the 2, probably Charles Alexander, which leaves Kareem Cooper probably on Jose Mercado if we're playing this out, right? So Shaq on Hachi. That's probably how I would start, so I agree with you. Foul trouble becomes a thing both ways, right? So if Kareem Cooper's guarding Jose and he's attacking and able to get, Kareem in foul trouble a little bit, it could be the other way as well, where Kareem Cooper is able to attack. So that's always the part that is unknown and how both of these teams adjust throughout the game in the finals. I say it all the time from experience, but also from watching it. This game feels like it's like 2 games long with how slow the game goes, just how slow the time feels like it's going. You may have a 10-point lead. Trust me, it's not enough, as both of these teams know. Like, teams are going to make a run because at this point, it is the 2 teams playing the best right now. That's how this works. You don't get this far if you're not playing really well as a team. And so you could be up 20, and it's like they're still going to make a run. Like, you still have to put this team away 2 or 3 or 4 times to seal this thing. And so that goes for both teams. No team's going to give up when you get to this point. So that's kind of the fun part of the finals. Matt has the game breakers. I have the game breakers, and I expect the 3s to be raining. I'll do the. Let's see if you can see my hand. I'll do the rain hands over here. Lots of 3s in the finals. Matt, good job. We will see the finals on Monday, the 26th, I believe. This Monday coming up, 8:15 live on YouTube. We then have our All-Star Night on Tuesday, August 27th, 7:15 is the 3-point contest, 7:45 is the dunk contest, and 8:15 is our All-Star game. Matt, your favorite dunker? 2 words. Who do you like? He's muted too. I put him really on the spot. We have Terrence Gallo, Kavai Simpson. He may or may not be there. Kareem Cooper, Joe Secator. Dunk contest would be a good one. Jesus Thames, I believe. He may or may not be in it, but he got voted in. Just your favorite dunker in general from watching this year.
Either going to have to go with Secator or Terrence Gallo, I'd have to say.
The staples who have been in the finals of this dunk contest the past couple years. I like it. I put him on the spot. He passes with his Celtics shirt. God dang it. Celtics fans, we hate him. We will see you. Well, someone will be crowned, just like the Celtics on Monday night. We'll see you at the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club. Matt, good job, everybody, and thanks for watching.